Louie Tee. Welcome to the 2018 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man Louie Tee aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2018 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale. Single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series, as we cannot tell how these players are going to pan out, and I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so we'll get a score for each and every single player selected in said team's draft. Apply bonuses when necessary, get an aggregate score, divide by the number of picks, which will lead us to our overall grade. We'll then move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer, are in total control, as this is the You Pick format. Simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos in this series stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Some examples would be Packers, next, next, Packers, next, Green Bay, next. You get where I'm going with this. Speaking of which, the next team up in the series is none other than Go, Pack, go! Go, Pack, go! The Green Bay Packers, fresh off of a disappointing campaign in which Aaron Rodgers was sidelined. It was rough at times watching this Packers team perform. There were some bright spots like the Sunday night loss at Pittsburgh, but there were some ugly games in there, like that Saturday contest versus the Minnesota Vikings in Green Bay. It was rough, and this Packers fan base has been treated to some great quarterback play over the last 2 decades, going straight from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. Last year was a mess, watching Brett Hundley at times trying to figure it out. You've moved on from him since that situation, or at least you went out and got DeShone Kizer. We'll see how that situation unfolds in Green Bay. But nonetheless, this is a Packers team that seems to always restack that wide receiver cupboard every single year, drafting at least 2 or 3 guys. You never know which 2 or 3 are going to make the roster and have an impact. No more Jordy Nelson, so you're definitely looking for some guys to step up. And you went out and got a ton of guys in this draft. We're going to see which ones are actually pan out, but we don't worry about the offense. When AR-12 is healthy, the offense is the least of this team's worries. It's always been the defense. This team is only going to go as far as Aaron Rodgers, with the help of the defense, is willing to take them. And so the Packers realized that and really put forth huge emphasis on the defense early in this draft, primarily the secondary. So we're going to talk about this draft in its entirety. 11 selections in all. Hell, we even had a couple of specialists drafted in this Green Bay Packers haul, a long snapper and a punter. So let's get to this draft by the Green Bay Packers. And we start in the first round, 18th overall selection. Cornerback out of Louisville, Jaire Alexander is the selection. So I'm not going to break down Jaire Alexander, as I've already done that in the Draft Prospects 101 series. So if you're looking for a thorough breakdown of Jaire Alexander and the next guy that we're going to talk about that was selected by this Packers team in this draft, go to the playlist section on the Louie Tee Network and locate the 2018 Draft Prospects 101 series. And so I'll say this. This pick itself was a triple because of the talents that Jaire Alexander possesses and brings to the table, and himself just being who he is. It probably would have been a home run if not for the injuries. I need to know exactly what you're getting, and I can't be certain after seeing this guy deal with the injuries that he did in 2017. But that aside, the fact that the Packers were able to parlay this selection, probably getting the guy that they coveted all along, and who's to really say, but they moved back a few spots, pick up a first-round pick in next year's draft because the Saints were so thirsty to come up. How can you knock what the Packers were able to do and still get a guy that they probably were going to select at 14 initially? You got to love that, and because of that selection, and look, the Packers have been trying to find the right mix at the cornerback position. I like what they're doing at the safety position with HaHa Clinton-Dix and the Jones kid you selected out of NC State last year. So you really feel good about the safeties, and they're really athletic and they can get around the football field. Now it's about finding the right mix of cornerbacks. They've been trying, okay? And they just haven't been able to figure out that position. They've traded off Demarius Randall, and they've pretty much admitted that Quentin Rollins and some of these other guys that they've spent picks on over the last few years just haven't panned out, which is fine. Got to admit your mistake and move forward. They've done that, and they went out and they addressed the position. They like Kevin King. Now they're going to add 2 more guys, and they're looking to solidify that secondary. And this is a guy that they think can help them do that, can play out wide, can play in the slot. And I think they're going to put him in the slot. If those 2 big guys out wide and King and the next corner that you selected pan out, those are your guys that you want on the boundary. And you want to stick a guy like Jaire Alexander in the slot. And we know in this league, slot is just as important, especially on third downs, as any position on the field, because that's the money position for most quarterbacks. They're looking for the tight end. They're looking for the slot receiver to win immediately on third and manageables to get them the football. So the slot position is a really big position now, and it's almost a starting position in this league now, because most teams are going with 3 and 4 wide receiver sets to start the game out. And in some instances, teams' base packages are 3 wide receiver sets. So the nickel is pretty much a starting position now in the NFL. And so you've got to have a guy that can man up that position. And the Packers feel like they have that in Jaire Alexander, not to mention a guy that can also give you a little bit of production on some return teams as well. And so we'll see what happens with Jaire Alexander and how the Packers plan to employ this young man. But nonetheless, this guy is highly talented, and to move back 4 spots and still get the guy that you coveted all along, all the while picking up a first-round pick, you already know. You already know what this is. In the first round, 18th overall selection, Louisville corner Jaire Alexander is...
Hits one high. Hits it deep. It is out of here.
As we move on to the second round, 45th overall selection, Iowa cornerback Josh Jackson is the selection. So as I mentioned before with Jaire Alexander, I'm not going to break down Joshua Jackson, as I've already done that in the Draft Prospects 101 series. The Draft, Prospects 101 series. So if you're looking for a thorough breakdown, go to the Draft Prospects 101 series. Nonetheless, here's another guy that you really like, and I thought he had first-round potential. Some people were turned off by the 40 time at the combine. He cleaned that up at his pro day, so there's not that issue lingering anymore. But he's long, he's raw, and there's some things he's going to have to work out in terms of kinks. And I think that's probably more along the lines of why this guy fell to the second round. Nonetheless, that's everyone else's problem. You were able to get him. And I thought it was a little bit of overkill. Okay, after drafting Kevin King in the second round last year and getting Jaire Alexander in the first round this year, I didn't expect the Packers to double down on the cornerback position so early in the draft. If you wanted another guy, I thought you could have gotten one a little bit later on. They said, nope, we're going to go ahead and just remove this off of our checklist of things to do in this draft by going ahead and getting Josh Jackson. So you could argue this is first round caliber talent that you're getting here in the mid-second round. But in any event, he's raw, he's long, he's athletic, he's got tons of ball skills being an ex-wide receiver. This is a guy, only 2 years of experience at the cornerback position. So there's a lot left for this guy to learn and hone in on his craft to get to the level that you need him to be at in order to help this Packers team win immediately. But nonetheless, you've got to like the production you got out of this guy, or the production that this guy was able to put on display at Iowa last season with all the interceptions and big plays and some big games. And so Josh Jackson could be a steal for you here in the second round. Really feel good about this pick for the Packers. In the second round, 45th overall selection, Iowa cornerback Josh Jackson for me is... So now we get to the portion of the draft that I haven't seen. And so we'll start looking at some of these players that the Packers selected to bring onto this roster to see if they can't help improve this football team. And this next one, third round, 88th overall selection, Vanderbilt linebacker Oren Burks being the selection, is one that I like, but I still got questions about. So let's go through Oren Burks, shall we? 6'3", 233 pounds, 33-inch arms. So you're talking about a long defender here in Oren Burks. 18 reps of 2 1/4, 39.5-inch vert, which shows the explosiveness and this guy's ability to get around the football field in very cat-like fashion. 19 starts, and this is, I think, what the Packers like the most about Oren Burks. 19 starts at safety and 22 at linebacker. So you're getting one of those hybrid linebacker safety combination type players. We're seeing more of these guys evolve in the league. We've seen that kind of position evolve. It really started with Deone Bucannon in Arizona and his ability to have that safety body and frame but come down, play in the box as a linebacker. And with the development of tight ends in that position and having those guys be as athletically gifted as they are, you need more speed in the box to compete with running backs and tight ends catching the football. And so this is one of those guys that's going to help you in that department. Has the coverage skills of a safety, but in more of a linebacker body. So this is a guy that gives you a little bit of that versatility. He played what they called the star position at Vanderbilt, that hybrid safety linebacker position, almost like a rover type. So I think the Packers are going to try to utilize that guy in nickel situations where he's on tight ends and things of that nature. And I think he'll excel in those types of situations. 5 career interceptions, 22 pass breakups, and 4.5 sacks to his credit in his collegiate career. So you look at his measurables at 6'3", 233 with 33-inch arms. You got to love that. That long, wiry frame gives him a little bit more ability to cover space. When you've got those kind of arms in that kind of frame, a 6'3" frame, you've got a little bit more range in terms of how far you can reach and get your hands on a ball carrier and extend out. So your tackle radius is a little bit longer than the average guy at the linebacker position. Speed, 4.59 speed for Oren Burks at the combine, which is plenty fast in today's NFL. And so, again, safety body or safety skill set, linebacker body, 4.59 speed. All of those things are attributes that got Oren Burks drafted here in the 3rd round. Athleticism, acceleration, redirect, all of those things. I think he's very solid at awareness. I think he's a very high IQ football player. Watching him on tape, he doesn't make a lot of mental mistakes. And one thing, we can talk about athleticism until our damn tongues fall out of our mouths. But at the end of the day, give me smart football players. It's great if I can get a guy that's highly gifted as an athlete, but if he's a dumb as a ton of bricks, you're not going to get what you're looking for out of that football player. I want the combination of high football IQ, high character, and also an athlete. If I can get that, that's great. That's a 1st-round pick all day long. But this guy here has high football IQ, and you can see it in some situations that I'll bring up a little bit later on, and I'll hark back to this high football IQ. But his awareness, it's off the charts. You'd like to see that awareness translate to him being a little bit more proactive and maybe a little bit more instinctual in certain situations. But he sees what's going on. You can tell he identifies what's going on. Sometimes he's just afraid to shoot his gun. Nonetheless, he can shed and slip blocks. He's not very adept at that. Remember, this is an ex-safety, so when offensive linemen get their hands on him, it's easy to drive block this guy out of the way and move him and create space. So he's not the best at shedding blocks, more along the lines of a guy that will slip a block before he's able to shed a block. But he will take on blocks, again, sometimes unsuccessfully, but nonetheless, he's not afraid to stick his helmet in the fray. But he does not defeat blocks. That's something that I also put in my notes. Not a guy that's going to defeat a ton of blocks. He'll take on them, but he's not going to get off of them a lot of times. His tackling ability, he tackles like a safety, and so that's not always a good thing. This guy, he approaches the linebacker position like a safety. So there are times where he's in the situation and he misses. And I'll give you an example. Watching him against Alabama, does a beautiful job of sifting through garbage, getting to the outside, getting through the traffic, and getting to Damian Harris. All right, and all Damian Harris simply does, and it's not like Oren Burks came out of control to the ball carrier. He was under control. He was right where he needed to be. And instead of him breaking down and making a tackle, he comes up like a safety, sloppy in his approach. And all Damian Harris simply does is stick his foot in the ground and cut it back. And Oren Burks goes right past him, and off to the races Damian Harris goes for probably about a good 24-yard gain. And so it's those types of misses. That should have been a 1-yard gain. Oren Burks was in great position to make the tackle after doing all of the dirty work, all of the hard part, which was sifting through the garbage to get to the outside, to get to the running back. He simply did not break down. And I saw him miss a couple of tackles on tape where he just looked like a safety trying to make a tackle instead of a linebacker who's coming in there to put his helmet in the chest of a ball carrier. So I don't love his tackling ability for a linebacker. It's fine for a safety. So you got to take the best of both worlds, and you got to take both of those different things that you get, because while he's got that safety movement, he's still at the linebacker position, and he still conducts himself as a safety in a lot of situations. Man coverage ability, I think this is where he's going to excel. This is why the Packers drafted him right here, because of his coverage ability. Again, safety mentality, safety movement skills in a linebacker body. So you're getting a guy ex-safety. He excels in coverage, and I watched him in coverage do some really, really good things. You start with his man-to-man coverage. They split him out wide against Tennessee. Tennessee decided to take their tight end and split him out wide in the red zone and just throw a fade ball up to him. And Oren Burks, one-on-one coverage, beautifully defends the football, knocks it away out of the hands of that tight end. Doesn't get much better than that. And he's going to see some of those matchups at the next level. Teams love flexing their tight ends out in one-on-one coverage in the red zone and trying to get him the football. Oren Burks is a guy that will be up to the task when asked to do so at the next level. And then versus Alabama, the tight end ran a seam ball up the middle of the field, and he took it away. He got in the hip pocket of that tight end and railed him and took him right out of the play. Jalen Hurts wanted to get the football to him, had to turn it down and tuck it and run. That was his primary option on that play. Oren Burks took him away, and that's what he brings to the table. And then finally, you go to his zone coverage ability, and this was probably the most impressive thing I saw him do. Against Alabama early in that football game, they're looking to run the wheel route up the sideline. They want to get the football to the running back out of the backfield. Oren Burks sees it, identifies it, goes over the minutia and the garbage, meets that running back up the sideline, takes that away. Jalen Hurts was looking for that. He thought he was going to be able to hit that, could not, looked to tuck it and run. Too late, sack, all because Oren Burks stayed at home, identified what was going on, took the proper angle, and was right in the hip of the running back up the sidelines for that wheel route. This guy's going to excel at the next level in coverage, more so than a guy that's going to help you in the box as a dominant tackler. And so that's, to me, where his money will be made at the next level, and his impact and value will be greatest is in coverage at the next level. His range, he can sort through trash to get to the ball carrier. I talked about him doing that to get to Harris of Alabama. Didn't make the tackle, but he got there. Saw him do it a number of times on tape, whether against Kentucky, getting to the ball carrier in similar fashion, sorting through the garbage, getting through the minutia to get to the ball carrier. Or against Alabama, saw him actually make a couple of tackles, but then miss a couple as well in similar fashion. But he has the range to get where he needs to get to on the football field, which takes us to our cons. Really, the only con that I have for this guy is blitzing capabilities. I don't think he's much of a blitzer right now. I think he can be better utilized as a blitzer, and it's up to the defensive coordinator to get the most out of this guy as a blitzer, because he's got the speed and he's got the length to really bother a quarterback, really make it tough on a running back to block him. If they can just free him up as a hitter, I think this is a guy that could be a little bit more impactful than he was at college as a blitzer. So I'm looking forward to seeing if the Packers can utilize him a little bit better than he was at Vanderbilt. But nonetheless, Oren Burks, to me, is a guy that you're looking to have come in, upgrade team speed defensively, which the Packers could desperately use at the linebacker position, but also give you a guy that can run with some of these tight ends and these running backs in coverage, which is what you currently lack at the linebacker position. This guy's going to come in and help change all of that. In the third round, 88th overall selection, Vanderbilt linebacker Oren Burks for me is as we move on to the next selection, fourth round, 133rd pick overall. You got a wide receiver group here that they all look the same, and we'll talk about that as we get through them. But this next selection is out of Mizzou. J'Mon Moore is the pick. So looking at J'Mon Moore, 6'3", 207 pounds, 33-inch arms, so you get a little bit of a catch radius there. 38-inch vert means that the guy not only has size but can get up. So climbing the ladder with those kinds of measurables gives you a bit of a catch radius there that should make him a problem to deal with at the next level. 21 reps of 225. You see that in his play on the football field. His run after the catch is the best of any of these receivers that you drafted in 2018. And his ability to make something out of nothing is also something the Packers are going to like. Similar to Davante Adams, when he gets the football in his hands, he's dangerous to make something happen after the catch. I think the Packers see a lot of that in J'Mon Moore as well. And so 2,000-yard receiving seasons in a row at Mizzou to finish up his career. So he was trending in the right direction. Let's talk about what this guy brings to the table. Obviously, measurables is the first pro that we're going to talk about at 6'3", 207 with 33-inch arms. This guy gives you a nice catch radius, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But his measurables are exceptional in what you're looking for at the NFL level. His hands, they're still a pro, but there were questions about drops with this guy. And it's not a situation of him not having good hands. It's just about concentration and him seeing the football into his hands. I mention this all the time. You can't have fun and ball without the ball. And so guys want to go and they want to make plays. They want to survey the field to see where they can go next. And they forget about the first part of the equation. And that's catching the football sometimes. He doesn't have an issue with hands that are questionable, that the ball beats him up a ton. It's just him seeing the football into his hands. If he can negate that, put it this way. You as a Packers fan, remember James Jones early in his career, how there were drops galore in there with James Jones. He'd make a spectacular grab and then he'd drop an easy comeback. That's what you could get out of J'Mon Moore. A guy that'll make the spectacular grab, but won't hesitate to drop a curl and a comeback on 3rd and 6. And just because he took his eyes off the football, you're hoping that he puts that behind him and concentrates and sees the football into his hands. But we'll see what happens. His speed is what scared some people at the combine. 4.6 was not a very good time for him. He cleaned that up, ran a 4.48 at his pro day. So he pretty much dispelled any notion. And when you watch him on tape, you don't see 4.6. You see 4.48. You see a sub 4.5 guy. And so I'm glad he was able to rectify that problem at his pro day. Quickness and suddenness, He's a big guy, but he does offer a little bit of quickness and suddenness, especially when he gets the football into his hands. You didn't see a ton of route running with this guy. And it's not because I don't think he can run routes. It's just because he wasn't asked to run routes at Missouri. Nonetheless, he's got a little bit of quickness and suddenness that allows him to not only win when he runs his routes, but also win after the catch. Acceleration, I've got in my notes, he's very leggy, but eats up a ton of space with his ability to run. And so he's one of those guys, he's a build-up speed guy, but once he builds up that speed, he will eat up a cushion and get even and then leave that defensive back. So he does have acceleration. Saw him win on a number of go balls down the football field. So he does have the ability to extend and get deep and really open up the football field for some other players that may be on the field at the same time. Route running ability, it was really nauseating watching him in the route running department, because if you want to see a guy run a steady diet of stops from anywhere from 5 to 12 yards, then J'Mon Moore is your man. I mean, the amount of stop routes that this guy ran was excruciating. I mean, god damn. At one point, I'm like, does this guy run any other routes than a stop? Do they have any more routes in the arsenal, in the playbook at Missouri than a stop for the guys that are outside on the boundaries? I didn't know it at one point, but then I got to see him run a couple of slants, a few posts, and then the go ball. That was it. That was the extent of what J'Mon Moore was pretty much doing. Now, he did have a post corner in there that they ran off of the post, and he scored a touchdown versus Auburn in doing that. But for the most part, boy, was there a steady diet of hitches with this guy. Good grief, man. So his route running isn't the best right now. It's not the most advanced nor adept, but what they will do with him is they will work closely with him to get him up to speed on the route tree and get him more comfortable, because I think he does have the ability to run clean and crisp routes and win against man-to-man coverage in some situations, but you really didn't get to see it very often at Mizzou. Physicality and toughness and run after the catch, they all kind of go with one another. They go hand in hand, because his physicality off the line of scrimmage and his toughness with the football in his hands allows him to get the run after the catch. His run after the catch is better than any of the other receivers that you selected in this draft. Strong with the football in his hands versus Tennessee, Kentucky, and UConn. It was fun watching him with the ball in his hands. For as bad as it was watching him run hitch after hitch after hitch, it was that much more exciting to see him get the football in his hands immediately, because you didn't know if he was going to break 2 or 3 tackles and then explode and make something happen like he did against Tennessee for a touchdown. So this guy has the ability to make some things happen. Leaping point and high pointing the football. Again, I talked about the 6'3" frame, talked about the 38-inch vert. This guy can go and get it. 33-inch arms, gives you the catch radius that you're looking for. So these are all weapons that Aaron Rodgers would love to be able to expose and use. And so we'll see if Aaron Rodgers and his Packers offense can exploit some of the things that J'Mon Moore brings to the table. Ball tracking, I watched him go and get a touchdown in the back of the end zone versus UConn, so he can go and get the football in flight, and so that's also good to know. Dependability and clutchness, because this guy will drop it. Don't know if he's the guy you want to be force feeding it to on 3rd and 6. We're going to find out more about his ability to catch the football and him to just focus and catch it at the next level. We'll see. Sideline awareness. He's a guy that knows where he is on the football field, can get his feet down in bounds. And then production. You're talking about a guy that in his first 2 years at Mizzou combined for 31 catches for 383 yards and 3 touchdowns. In his final 2 years, you get 62 catches for 1,012 and 8 touchdowns in 2016. And in 2017, he followed that up with 65 catches, 1,082 yards, and 10 touchdowns, all career highs. So the guy that's trending in the right direction is J'Mon Moore. You look at his negatives and his cons. Blocking, he's a lackadaisical blocker. He really is a guy that just kind of falls asleep behind the wheel as a blocker. don't love what he brings to the table in that regard there. He's going to need to be a lot better if he wants to help the Packers bust off some big runs. He's going to have to be a lot more aware of his surroundings. He seems to be a little bit too concerned about where the running back is and is he going to run up my leg or, you know, that sort of thing. Look, you just, as a blocker, you just got to block. And whatever happens, happens. You don't want guys rolling up on you, and if you can avoid it, great. But a lot of times when you are looking back, you're more susceptible to getting hurt or having something happen to you than when you're just doing your job. And he's a guy that just kind of falls asleep behind the wheel as a blocker. And in versatility, he was only featured as an X at Missouri, nothing else. It wasn't in the slot. They didn't move him around very often. He's a guy that you pretty much know where he's going to line up at. And so that could be a problem at the next level, or it may not be. But right now, there's not a lot of versatility that you get with J'Mon Moore. But in any event, this guy has talent. I understand why the Packers took this guy in the 4th round, and they think that they can get a lot out of what he brings to the table. And so we'll see what he does bring to the table for this Packers offense, as they're going to need some guys to step up at the receiver position with the departure of Jordy Nelson. Randall Cobb isn't getting any younger. You're going to need some guys to step up, and you're hoping that 2 out of the 3 guys that you drafted, at least 2 of them can come in and have an immediate impact on this Packers offense. And they're hoping that J'Mon Moore is one of those guys. In the 4th round, 133rd selection overall, wide receiver out of Mizzou, J'Mon Moore is. As we move on to the next pick in the Packers draft, 5th round, 138th overall selection, offensive lineman out of Washington State, Cole Madison is the selection. So Cole Madison is a 6'5", 308-pound offensive lineman out of Washington State. Now, here's a guy that had 47 starts at right tackle at Washington State from Mike Leach in that air raid attack, 39 of which were consecutive starts to end his career. So you're getting a pretty durable offensive lineman here. Here's the thing, though. 32-inch arms to go with a 6'5", 308-pound frame. So those arms tell you that his home at the next level most likely going to be inside as a guard. And I'll give you some empirical evidence as to why that probably should be the case. 26 reps of 2 1/4. That's really solid for an offensive lineman. So he can hold his own. And I think he's going to be a guy that is going to come in and give you some versatility. In a pinch, you can slide him outside to tackle, but I think where you want this guy most ideally is inside at offensive guard. Measurables, 6'5", 308, that's outstanding. You'll take that all day, every day. It's the 32-inch arms that make his measurables a little less desirable, but nonetheless, his measurables are just fine. Athleticism, 5'3", 340, but he's very quick. A lot quicker than the 5.33 gives him credit for. And again, what that 40 time does is it tests long distance speed. We're talking about quickness here, and that's what this guy has. Technique, good footwork, really good kick slide. It's fluid, and he's got a solid punch. All of those things add up to this guy being pretty solid as a pass protector, which he was for an offense that threw it a ton at Washington State. And he was one of those guys that was really dependable, man. You rarely saw him get beat. And so you feel like you got a guy that's going to keep the man in front of him, right? So I really like that from that standpoint. Anchor, his length will force him inside the guard. That's what I put in my notes. And the game that I highlighted as the one that really stuck out to me like a sore thumb was against Stanford. Early in that football game, he got his ass kicked on about 2 or 3 plays early in that game, and it was just against pure length. Guys able to get up under his pads and drive him back because they were able to get to him before he was able to get to them, and it was simply a reach advantage for the defender against Cole Madison, and there was nothing he could do about it. Guy got up under his pads with length, and was able to drive him back, get him off balance, put him on skates, and literally walk him into the lap of the quarterback. He was not able to hunker down and rebound and stick his foot in the ground and arch that back and stop the momentum of that defensive lineman. He just wasn't able to do it. And so he's going to have to kick inside where guys' arms aren't as long, generally speaking. So we're going to see what the Packers decide to do with him. But his anchor is fine when he's not giving in to length. But when he does come up against someone with a little bit of length, he can be displaced. Balance, same thing. The only time balance is jeopardized is when length or elite quickness is in front of him. I did see against, it was Washington, where it was a guy with just some really good quickness that was able to give him a move and get around him. And then he came with one of those Reggie White clubs and was able to really displace Cole Mason, or Madison, excuse me. So if you don't have elite quickness or you don't have elite length, you're not going to get Cole Madison off balance. His redirect is solid. It's not going to wow you, but he's solid in that department. Toughness, I don't question toughness with the guy that played in 39 straight games, because there are nicks and bruises. There are times where I'm pretty sure he was dealing with some kind of nagging injury and he sucked it up and he went out there and he performed at a high level. So I don't question the toughness of guys who go out and suit up each and every single week. Pass blocking and run blocking ability, I think he's a little bit further along as a pass blocker. Go figure, he played in an offense where they would throw it 50 some odd times a game. That was their MO. So it shouldn't shock you that he's a much better pass blocker than he is a run blocker. To me, as a run blocker, he doesn't sustain as well as I think he could. Guys are able to get up. He initiates contact well and able to give himself a chance, but he doesn't sustain. The guy that he's blocking could very well end up being the one making the tackle. And half the battle is sustaining the block. You got to stay on guys, because just because you contact them doesn't mean you've done your job. You need to be able to hold off that defender and allow the ball carrier to pass you and go and make extra yardage. I don't think he does a great job of doing that. He's a guy that you can stack and shed, is essentially what I'm saying. Finish, he's not an overly nasty offensive lineman. And again, that kind of goes to where I say he doesn't sustain. Guys that sustain and want to drive you into the turf, guys that sustain and want to throw you onto the top of a pile and keep pushing you, even after they know they've already won, they don't care, they want to rub it in your face. Those are the guys with nasty finish. This guy doesn't sustain, and he doesn't finish guys into the ground, pancake them, put a little extra syrup on top, none of that stuff. He's just looking to do his job. And so there's nothing wrong with that, but except for when your guy's the one making the tackle. Then there's something wrong with that. Awareness, I think he's a very extreme offensive lineman. I put down in my notes, extremely aware versus the blitz versus Michigan State. They had two guys coming on his side. He was able to pick up one and then go and get the other one. So he's a guy that is able to see what's happening. And there was one time where he had to loop around. They tried to overload the outside. They had a tight end on his side and a running back on his side. And they tried to really overload his side. And they pinched the line in. And then he realized at the last second that they had an extra guy coming to the outside. He loops all the way around and goes and gets that guy, pushes him around the pocket, allows the quarterback to step up, deliver the football. So very, very aware is Cole Madison. Recovery, athleticism allows him to get back into play after initially beaten. You watch him get beat against Washington and Michigan State, still able to get back into those plays and get enough of that defensive lineman to push him around the pocket to allow the quarterback to step up and deliver the football. So, again, he's a guy that even when he's beaten initially, has some quicks to get back into the play, recover, and save what could have been a disastrous rep in allowing his quarterback to get hit. So, he does have some recovery there in him as well. And then availability, 3 straight years at right tackle, to end his career without missing a game. And you're talking about a guy that had about 8 or 9 starts as a true freshman as well, or a redshirt freshman. So this is a guy that you love the fact that that's something the Packers have struggled with over the years as well. Guys just being healthy. You want to hear that this guy hasn't missed a start in 3 years if you're a Packers fan. So you go to his cons. There really aren't any real cons to mention here. I don't have anything here that stands out. I didn't get to see him pull a lot at the tackle position. They didn't ask him to do a lot of pulling at Washington State. So if he's going to play the guard position, you would think naturally he's going to have to pull. He's capable of getting to the second level, though. Off of seeing his quickness, I have no doubts that he's capable of getting to the second level. I watched him get to the second level a couple of times. So I'd like to think that he can pull, but he wasn't asked to do so at Washington State very often. So all in all, this is a solid pickup for the Packers, along with an offensive line that can use as many bodies as possible to try to keep Aaron Rodgers upright and to try to open up some holes for the run game. I think the Packers feel really good about what they were able to establish in the run game last year with some of the guys that they drafted in the 2017 draft. And so now they want to build upon that, and they want to keep Aaron Rodgers upright and see if they can't get this offense a little bit more balanced and allow Aaron Rodgers to do what it is he does as one of the best in the league. And here's a guy in Cole Madison that I think not only is going to make this roster, but help you at some point in 2018 and possibly moving forward. And so in the 5th round, 138th overall selection, Washington State offensive lineman Cole Madison, for me, is so the Packers had 3 5th-round selections. Here's the second of which, 5th round, 172nd overall pick, punter out of Alabama, J.K. Scott is the selection. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on John Kimball Scott, okay? 6'6", 208-pound punter out of Alabama. I'll give you a couple of stats and then we'll move on. 45.6 career average per punt, which is solid. Good hang time on punts and can kick them for distance or hang time, I think, which is probably his best attribute, is his ability to get hang time on his punts and force fair catches. He's got a really big leg when it comes to that, and he's a long guy at 6'6". So when he is able to uncoil that full leg and extension and really get all of his power into the kicks, he does a great job of getting hang time and distance, which is a deadly combination on his kicks. He also holds for field goal attempts, so he's a guy that gives you that ability as well. Plays 25% of his punts inside the 10, 51% of them inside the 20. So again, that kind of speaks to his ability to get hang time in the football, forcing those fair catches and getting some of those kicks down to inside the 20-yard line. He can kick off. He did it full-time in 2017. The drawback to that is he doesn't get as much distance on those kicks. He's not as adept at that. Maybe with more work, he'll get better. Maybe he's just not a kickoff guy. We'll see at the next level. But this is his biggest issue right now that he's going to have to clean up. 2 blocked career kicks. One of them came in the national championship game in, I believe it was 2017, 2018, or the SEC championship versus Florida, one or the other. In any event, he can be a little deliberate with his process. He's a little bit slow to get the football to his toe. From catch to toe, it's not as clean and as fast a delivery. And he's a longer guy. He's going to have to speed that up a little bit, or there will be more blocks to come for sure. But nonetheless, look, he's a punter. What do you want me to do? 5th round, 172nd overall selection. Every team needs one. Hopefully he does a great job for you. Packers select J.K. Scott out of Alabama. So 2 picks later, 174th in the 5th round, Packers go back to the wide receiver store, this time for a product out of South Florida in Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So Marquez Valdes-Scantling is a very intriguing prospect here. Guy that started his career at NC State, Didn't love the way he was being used at the end of his sophomore season. Transferred over to South Florida and really started to make some plays towards the end of his career. 6'4", 206, another one of these guys that qualifies as a height, weight, speed specimen. And this one more so than the other two. And you drafted 3 height, weight, speed specimens in this draft. He is by far and away the fastest of the group. This guy ran, a 4.37 at the combine, which was just blazing. One of the faster receivers at the 2018 NFL Scouting Combine. And with that combination of size, weight, and speed, you feel really good about what this guy brings to the table. 15 reps of 2 1/4 for a receiver with longer arms. That's exceptional. And 17.7 yards per catch over the last 2 seasons shows that 4.37 translates to the field, and this guy can make big plays and stretch the defense and really take the top off the defense when it's all said and done. So let's look at this guy and what he brings to the table in Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Measurables. I mean, obviously 6'4", 206. That's exceptional. With the way he can pick him up and put him down, you're really excited about what this guy brings to the table. Hands. I thought his hands were really good. Saw him catch the football, pluck it out of the air, make some plays after the catch. So this guy's hands, I saw him go down, make a sliding catch in the end zone for a touchdown. I think he's going to be an asset to this Packers football team. Speed! We already talked about speed and what his is and what it means for this Packers offense that I feel at times lacks the ability to go over the top. Here's a guy that's going to be able to do that for you in a major way in Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Quickness, suddenness, not his biggest attribute, not the quickest nor most sudden guy at 6'4". You don't really expect him to be, but again, his speed is going to scare the bejesus out of people. They're going to back up, give him 7 to 10 yards of space off the line of scrimmage. And you know a guy like Aaron Rodgers that's very astute is going to see that and just give it to him. Hitch, right off the snap. We see him do it all the time. Oh, you want to play off 7 yards because this guy's extremely fast? All right, I'll get it to him. Hopefully he makes you miss. And now you got to count on a linebacker or a safety to take a proper angle and catch this guy before he revs up the engines and uses that 4.37 speed down the sideline to burn everybody. So I look for this guy to find a way to make plays, even though he's not the quickest, most sudden guy in the world. Acceleration, obviously, when you're running a 4.37, you can accelerate. Versus Illinois, I've got him on a blow-by on a 9-ball down the sideline. Man, was it bad. And there are a number of other opportunities for him to make plays where his quarterback just underthrew him, and he's got guys by 2-3 steps, and he's got to wait on the football. So Aaron Rodgers, we know he's got a cannon. It's going to be tough for him to overthrow this guy. Hopefully, Rodgers will be able to put it on the money because they can make some beautiful music together on the deep ball for sure. Route running, he was a guy that I thought when I turned on tape I was going to see much like what I saw from Jamon Moore, a bunch of hitches and wide receiver screens and things to get in his hands quickly. He actually ran some routes at USF. And here's the thing, at South Florida, he played with a quarterback that did a lot of improvising, similar to Aaron Rodgers. And so that's something that you can't discount here, is that even though he's not the greatest route runner in the world, he's a guy that knows how to play off schedule because he had to with a very mobile quarterback in Flowers at South Florida. So here's a guy that understands quarterbacks rolling out of the pocket. Let me make myself available. There's an art to that as a receiver. Not all receivers are created equal when things break down and it's all of a sudden a fire drill and you got to find a way to open up yourself for the quarterback and make yourself an inviting target. I think Marquez Valdes-Scantling is a guy that's an underrated facet of his game because of what he had to endure at college playing with a quarterback that you never knew where he was going to be and you had to find a way to get open. He's a guy that I think knows how to do that. Physicality and toughness, 6'4", 206-pound frame. Saw him go over the middle, make some tough catches, take some hits. So there's that. Run after the catch. He's not a Jamon Moore type of run after the catch guy from the standpoint of I'm going to make you miss and I'm going to be tough and I'm going to break tackles. He's more of a, hey, I catch it out in space. I can accelerate and run past some guys. He's more Terrence Williams than he is Dez Bryant, if you understand where I'm going with that. Dez Bryant more physical. I'm going to stiff arm you. I'm going to run through arm tackles, which is what Jamon Moore is. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is more Terrence Williams. I'm going to catch it on a slant, and I'm going to haul ass. And if you don't catch me, I'm gone. He's that kind of guy. And you saw it versus Houston and versus Illinois, catching some slants and accelerating past that first defender. And if not for the safety, being able to get a piece of the ankle, he's gone. Off to the races, gone. You're not catching 4.37 from behind. So he's that kind of run after the catch guy. Catch radius, obviously 6'4", gives you a much bigger catch radius. Ball tracking. In Houston, versus Houston, he caught the football in traffic down the field. This had to be a mix-up. Two receivers in the same spot, which means there were two defenders there. He goes up, climbs the ladder, goes and gets the football, so he can track it in the air and make some plays. He competes as a blocker. He was one of those guys that they featured in the wide receiver game as one of the receivers that were blocking. And I thought he did a pretty solid job. He competes. He's not always going to win as a blocker, but he knows when to say when. Not one of those guys that misses a block and then wants to hold and compound matters and makes it worse. Hey, if I lost, I lost. But he competes, and I can respect that. Clutchness, dependability as a receiver. I'd like to think that there are other guys that you can get the football to before you have to get it to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. That being said, I think he'll catch it if you throw it his way. So we'll see what happens there. Not a lot of versatility here for the most part. This guy lined up out wide. They didn't move him around very much at South Florida. So, again, another one of these guys that he may be able to move around. They just didn't do it, but we'll see what happens with him in this Packers offense and what they ask him to do. Sideline awareness. Talked about the nice diving touchdown that he had versus Illinois in the end zone. So he's capable of doing that. And then production. This production wasn't the greatest. Here's a guy that in 2016, 22 catches, 415 yards, 5 touchdowns. That was his best season to date until 2017, where he set all career highs, 53 catches, 879 yards, 6 touchdowns. That was receiving. And also had another 8 carries for 108 yards and a touchdown as a runner. So this guy is a little bit multifaceted there as a guy that you can get it to. With that kind of speed, you just want to get it in his hands. You really don't care how. Jet sweeps, hitches, bubble screens, 9-ball, you name it, you're trying to do it. Slants where you get it, hit him in space, and hit him in stride and allow him to run after the catch. You just want to get it to this guy because he's so goddamn fast. You want the defense to recognize and respect what this guy brings to the table. So that's Marquez Valdes-Scantling in a nutshell. Of the three, he's the guy that you're looking to take the top off the defense with. And of the three, he's the one guy that necessarily isn't a jump ball guy, isn't the one you want to just throw it up to and say, hey, big boy, go get it. But he's the guy that can run past every defender in this league and make a play down the field. And so he does bring that element to the table in the 5th round, 174th overall selection, wide receiver out of South Florida. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is finally the last of your receivers in this draft. And I'm a little biased because I'm a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan, but my favorite in this draft of your receivers, 6th round, 207th overall selection, wide receiver out of Notre Dame, Equanimeous St. Brown is the selection. So we're talking Equanimeous St. Brown, and to friends and family, he's simply EQ. If you can't say Equanimeous, just call him EQ. I'm pretty sure that's what everyone on the Packers roster is calling him as we speak, and I'm pretty sure that's what announcers are going to call him at the next level. So whether you're comfortable with EQ or Equanimeous, knock yourself out, but the guy is definitely cool under pressure, which is what Equanimeous pretty much means. Anyway, 6'5", 214, a junior out of Notre Dame, 20 reps of 2 1/4, so a guy that is pretty strong for his size. It doesn't look it, though. When you look at his frame, it's long, it's wiry. It doesn't look like the strongest guy in the world, but 20 reps of 2 1/4 for a guy with longer arms, that's pretty impressive. 34-inch vert, so there is a little bit of explosiveness here. There are questions about this guy. Is he a true competitor? Is he strong enough? He got bodied by some smaller defenders coming off the line of scrimmage, didn't get off clean releases. So people wonder, is this guy a real competitor? Does he love football? Comes from a very, very competitive background. It's amazing that people question his competitiveness because he comes from a background with a number of brothers that are all hyper competitive. But it's one of those situations where you don't know if he needs football necessarily. Comes from a family that dad was a weightlifting champion and a bodybuilder, and he comes from a background that is very affluent, and so people question, does this guy need football? I don't worry about any of that stuff. I tell you this much, the guy can play football, and with Aaron Rodgers, I think this guy can make some beautiful music. Let's jump into his breakdown, though. Measurables, obviously 6'5". He's the biggest of the group. And it's amazing because when I look at these receivers that the Packers drafted, you've got a new offensive coordinator, no more Edgar Bennett. You've got a new passing coordinator. Alex Van Pelt is out. So you're bringing in all these new guys. You got new receiver coach. All of that stuff is brand new. And there's a concerted effort to get bigger, faster at the receiver position. You would have thought out of 3 receivers, one of these guys would have been 6'1", maybe 5'11", jitterbug type, more in the mold of a Randall Cobb, who isn't getting any younger, who's been dealing with injuries over the last couple of years himself. We thought there would be one of those guys in there somewhere, and there wasn't. There are just 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", one after another. They're all the same type of receiver. All of them have 1 or 2 discernible traits, but for the most part, they're the same guy. So it's amazing to watch the Packers pick these receivers, and I want to see the plan because Aaron Rodgers is one of the best throwers of the football in the league. And with this kind of height, he could be absolutely dangerous. And I think that's what they also see in these guys. But nonetheless, another big receiver, 6'5", 214, the biggest of the 3. His hands, he's got really good hands, but there was a drop versus Texas on a 3rd down in 2016. And really, if you want to see the best of EQ, you got to go back to 2016 when DeShone Kizer was his quarterback, because DeShone Kizer would give him opportunities to make plays. Whereas last year, the quarterback situation at Notre Dame wasn't the most ideal, and there wasn't a lot of continuity there. And so his numbers kind of fell off, and I think that's why you saw him fall so far in the draft. Had he followed up his 2016 campaign with another strong one, this guy's definitely in the discussion as a 3rd, possibly a 2nd-round pick, but no later than a 4th. Instead, he's a 6th-round pick because once a guy has numbers fall off the way that he does and his production drop, when you got a Brandon Wimbush out there at quarterback, people start to question. They start to try to poke and prod and find things wrong, and that's what happened with Equanimeous St. Brown. But nonetheless, his hands are solid. Speed, 4.4, 840, so another sub 4.5 40 guy. All of your receivers can run sub 4.5 that you drafted. With their size, that is exceptional. Quickness, suddenness, again, another one of these guys not going to wow you with the quickness and suddenness. He's more along the lines of Marquez Valdes-Scantling than he is Jamon Brown in the terms, Jamon Moore in terms of quickness and suddenness. Acceleration, I think his acceleration might be the best of anyone. That includes Marquez Valdes-Scantling. You watch his acceleration versus Stanford in 2017, catches a simple, shallow crosser, outruns a linebacker, and takes off down the sidelines, gets one block, and just outruns everyone. That's acceleration, folks. You look at him versus Syracuse in 2016, very first play of the game, catches a slant over the middle of the field. Might have been a dig route. Don't quote me on that, but either way, catches it in stride, outruns 2 Syracuse defenders. Again, it is Syracuse, I understand. Still hauls ass and outruns those guys to the end zone. His acceleration may be the best of any of the receivers you've taken in this draft. Route running ability, shallow drags, dig routes, slant, go balls. These are all things that I saw him run on tape and ran all of them equally effectively. Physicality, toughness, those are 2 things that I question with him. He's not the toughest guy in the world. He's not the most physical guy in terms of taking hits after the catch, holding on to the football. Sometimes he's more worried about the impending hit than he is catching the football. That's why a lot of people question his competitiveness sometimes, or he'll be out wide and he'll let a 5'11", 6-foot cornerback get up in him and into his space and all in his mix and kind of fluster him a little bit. And that's why people question this guy. And is he really a competitor, and just how tough is he? We'll see. We'll see about that. Run after the catch. Talked about those 2 plays against Stanford and against Syracuse. So those are great examples. Again, he's another one of these guys, much like Valdes-Scantling, not going to make you miss, but he will outrun you if you don't get your hands on him. This is his biggest attribute to me, though, more so than any of the other receivers you have. And I told you, each one of these guys brings something different to the table. For me, with J'Mon Moore, with Moore, his best attribute is run after the catch. With Valdes-Scantling, his best attribute is just pure unadulterated speed and being able to take the top off the defense and run by guys. And Equanimeous St. Brown's best attribute is the jump ball, the ability to go up, high point the football, and bring it down. At 6'5", he does that better than any one of those receivers take it. So every one of those guys, despite them all being similar in size and looking the same, all of them bring something different to the table. At least one discernible trait in his is the ability to go up and high point the football. His catch radius is outstanding as well. Ball tracking. Against Syracuse, he tracks a deep ball for a touchdown in 2016. And then versus Michigan State, he has a diving deep ball catch in 2017. So he shows you the ability to go and get the football. Clutchness and dependability. I hark back to that Texas game in 2016. That was a big one for me. Really wanted us to get that one. First game of the season on the road, hostile environment. We were already ranked as a top 10 team. He drops the football on a 3rd down early in that football game again. It wasn't huge in the outcome of a game, but you never know what a drive can become if you convert on 3rd downs. So I don't really know if he's the guy you want to trust on 3rd downs or not. Again, small sample size, but still. Versatility, he's not a guy that you're going to put in the slot and do a lot of those things with. So, again, versatility limited, but it's still something that you can try to exploit at the next level. Sideline awareness, had a beautiful catch where he gets his feet down versus LSU in the bowl game in 2017. So he does have sideline awareness. And then finally, production. Production wasn't the greatest in 2017, as I mentioned, but his 2016 production, he was just starting to ascend into that stratosphere of elite receiver with Deshaun Kaiser at quarterback. 58 catches, 961 yards, and 9 touchdowns for a 16.5 yards per catch average in 16. And then those numbers dipped dramatically with Brandon Wimbush and some of the other guys at the quarterback position. 33 grabs, 515 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Not ideal numbers to come out on. He could have went back to school for his senior season. His brother decided to go to USC instead of Notre Dame. And once his brother didn't come to Notre Dame, he said, well, I'm not going to get to play with my brother. I'm just going to go ahead and take my talents to the next level. You go to his cons, not much of a blocker. I put down in my notes, versus Texas on an early long run, he competes. He's just not good. He had a nice block on an early run against Texas where he comes down, pins down the defender, and allows for a huge run early in that game. He's just not really good at it, though. And again, that kind of goes back to the physicality, toughness aspect. Just not really good at staying in front of a guy and keeping him at bay. But nonetheless, I'm in the 6th round, 207th pick overall. Wide receiver out of Notre Dame, Equanimeous St. Brown, for me, is as we move on to the 7th round, this is a guy that I really, really like here. 7th round, 232nd pick overall. Defensive lineman out of Cal, James Looney, is the selection. For a 7th round pick, this guy was actually pretty impressive. And generally, 7th round picks are just guys you take a flyer on, and you don't really expect them to make the roster per se. But James Looney is a little different. And when I watch him, there's a place in this league for guys like him. And there's a set of attributes and skills that he brings to the table that will endear him to coaches and really make him a guy that's hard to keep off of an NFL roster. 6'3", 287, 28 reps of 2 1/4, 35.5-inch vert, and you see that with the quickness that he gets off of the snap. NFL bloodlines. His brother is Joe Looney, who is currently an offensive lineman with the Dallas Cowboys. At one point was a starting offensive guard for the San Francisco 49ers. So got NFL bloodlines. Transferred over from Wake Forest, and career numbers, 8.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 21 tackles for loss. He's a guy that loves to play on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage, and I think that's his biggest attribute as we get into his measurables. He's got a really good frame. I look at him, and he's shaped like an edge rusher with the stoutness of a 3-tech. So what I mean by that, just looking at his frame, he doesn't look the biggest. He's got a nice, because you sometimes you get sloppy body guys where you're just like, man, he looks like he's 290 pounds, or he looks like he's 315 pounds. Some guys prefer the big lower body guy with the bubble butt that have big thighs and can stand up at the point of attack. I prefer my guys to have a lean frame, but carry it well and also be able to be stout. And that's what James Looney is. He's a very well-constructed guy that has the stoutness of a 3-tech. I really like what he brings to the table from that standpoint. His athleticism, 4'8", 40, which is really good for a 290-pounder. Extremely quick off the snap. That is the first thing that you notice with James Looney. Put on any tape you like. I watched him against Washington in 2016, UCLA in 2017, USC in 2017. USC game was a clinic. So was the Washington tape from 2016, but the USC tape from 2017 was a clinic on just explosiveness in the backfield, making plays. This guy is just disruptive as hell. And it's just him getting off the snap quickly, shooting the gap. He's a one-gap penetrator, gets up the field, makes plays, and disrupts things. And I like that. And I think he's going to be a 5 technique for the Packers if they're still, you're switching your defense a little bit. Dom Capers is out. I don't know if you're playing a 4-3 or a 3-4. If you're sticking with that base 3-4 defensive scheme, he's a 5 tech in that defense, and he'll be a damn good one at that. Hand usage, he uses his hands well to complement his quickness. So he's the type of guy, quick off the snap and a swim move or a hand slap to complement that quickness to help him get up the field. Try to get in the backfield, make a tackle for a loss. So really good hand usage from that standpoint. Awareness, it barely made it in the positives. I put down in my notes, would like to see him disengage from linemen when blocked and the running back is in proximity. He's not one of those guys that when engaged will stack and shed and discard and get to the ball carrier. A lot of times running back will be able to run right by him. He doesn't stick out a paw of doom, doesn't have a pod, and not making plays in that fashion. That's, if he wants to take his game to the next level, that's something that he would have to start to do, is to be a little bit more aware of where the running back is, the ball carriers, stack, shed, discard, get to ball carrier. Point of attack physicality, he's solid at the point of attack. He's not going to overwhelm you at the point of attack, but he's solid. He can hold his ground. If you double team him, you will move him off the spot. You will uproot James Looney with a double team, but singled up, he can hold his own at the point of attack. Changes directions really well for a 290-pound guy, essentially. So his redirect is solid. Ability versus the run, I put down in my notes, stout at the point of attack, but has quickness to be disruptive and play on the other side of the line of scrimmage, which, as I mentioned earlier, is his best attribute. So that's what he brings to the table from a run defense standpoint, is he can get to the other side of the field, other side of the line of scrimmage, and really blow some things up, even if he does not make the tackle himself. Pass rushing ability, his quickness creates problems, but won't dominate as a rusher at the next level. He doesn't have a bevy of moves. There isn't a secondary move when the quickness doesn't work initially. He's not a guy that's going to put a spin move after quickly trying to get up the field and getting a tackle to over, or a guard to overset, spin back inside. He's not a guy that comes with secondary moves and follows up on what he does. So he's not going to, he hustles to sacks and he wins off quickness to sacks. If he doesn't win initially with quickness, probably not going to get to the quarterback. Tackling ability is solid once he's able to shake free of an offensive lineman, get his hands on ball carriers. Generally, he's able to get in on the tackle. He has a great motor. It runs hot. He hustles. Love that about him. And his endurance is fine. Impact on the game from a standpoint of just being disruptive. He's got a huge impact on the game from just a disruption standpoint. He's in the backfield. He's blowing up plays. Does he always make the play? No. But it's his activity that makes it easier for a linebacker to come in right behind him and get a tackle for no gain at the line of scrimmage. Because James Looney blew up a play and forced two guys to have to pay attention to him and then forced the running back to, sooner than he wanted to, off his track, jump cut to avoid him. Boom, here comes the linebacker. Gain of 1, no gain. So, a lot to like here with James Looney, especially for a 7th round flyer. I really like what this guy potentially could bring to the table for you as a rotational defensive lineman in the 7th round, 232nd overall selection. Defensive lineman out of Cal, James Looney, for me, is. So as we move on to the second of the 3 7th round picks the Packers had, 239th overall, long snapper out of Mississippi State, Hunter Bradley is the selection. All right, look, I'm not going to keep you here long on this one. He's a damn long snapper, folks, okay? Simply put, 6'3", 241, completed every snap successfully the last 2 years at Mississippi State in 2016, 2017, and started every game. What more do you want from me? What more do you need from me? As long as, look, a long snapper's job is to not F up. And he didn't F up at Mississippi State over the last 2 years. Beautiful. Tore his ACL in 2012, something to keep in the back of your mind. Remember, long snappers are only a problem when they're not doing their job properly. If you don't know your long snapper's name, good for you. That means he's probably doing his job well. Bottom line is 4 career tackles, torn ACL in 2012, and, oh yeah, every snap in 2016 and 17 successfully completed. What more do you want from me? In the 7th round, 239th overall selection, long snapper out of Mississippi State, Hunter Bradley is. He's a damn long snapper, folks. What did you think he was going to get? Finally, we wrap up this Packers draft with their 11th and final selection in the 7th round, 248th overall selection. Edge rusher out of Southeast Missouri State, Kendall Donnison is the selection. So, small school prospect to wrap up this Packers draft, 6'3", 249 out of Southeast Missouri State. And these are the type of guys you take in the 7th round. I'm always excited about a height, weight, speed specimen in the 7th round, a guy that is raw and doesn't know what the hell he's doing, but all of the athletic exploits and measurables are there for you to work with. If he makes it, great. If he doesn't, it's a 7th round flyer, nothing harmed, nothing lost. So this is exactly what Kendall Donnison is. A guy that at 6'3", 250 essentially, with a 40-inch vertical, a 10-11 broad, 20 reps of 2 1/4, and running a 4.44, a Moses Malone 4.44 as an edge rusher, that gets you excited, all right? Not a lot of production at Southeast Missouri State. Not a guy that really knows what the hell he's doing yet. He's extremely raw, but that's the kind of guy you want to work with those kinds of measurables. That's the kind of guy you draft in the 7th round. So quickly, let's run through what this guy was able to do. His career numbers, 11 career sacks, 6 of which came in 2017. 5 forced fumbles, 3 of which came in 2017. 28.5 tackles for loss, 13.5 of which came in 2017. Every single one of those 2017 stats, 6 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and 13.5 tackles for loss, all career highs. So he's starting to get better, but he's got a long way to go. So I watched him in 3 games versus Southern Illinois and Dayton and Kansas all in 2017. Measurables, 6'3", 250. That's great. Explosiveness and athleticism, you saw it on tape. All right. Showed a burst versus Dayton off the edge, dives over the cut block attempt of a running back, and sacks the quarterback. So off the edge, you see explosiveness there and the athleticism to avoid the cut block of a running back and still get to the quarterback, all in one smooth motion. Explosiveness, you have to block this guy on the backside of plays. I watched this guy repeatedly on the backside of plays, hawk guys down from behind in backside pursuit for a tackle for loss. He did it against Dayton. So he's a guy that you have to block on the backside of plays, or else he will wreak havoc with that 4-4 explosiveness off the edge. Awareness, stayed at home versus Southern Illinois on 2 bootlegs. So even though this is a guy that wants to come down the line aggressively and make tackles on the backside of plays when he's not blocked, still having the wherewithal and the awareness to stay at home, keep contained on the outside, and then chase quarterback and make him get rid of the football. Setting the edge in the run game. I watched him bench press an offensive tackle and shed for a forced fumble versus Southern Illinois. So stands up the offensive tackle, sees ball carrier coming, discards, get to the ball carrier, punches football free, forces a fumble. Big play in that ball game at the time. Redirect is solid. Ability versus the run is solid. He's still got a ways to go in the run game, as does he in the pass game. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Tackling ability is solid. Coverage skills. I saw him get out to the perimeter on a wide receiver screen and make a tackle on a little bit of a hitch versus Kansas. So he has the ability to drop into some underneath zone coverages and make some things happen there. Got good motor and endurance. Impact on the game, still a work in progress, but we get to his cons quickly. You look at his pass rushing ability, he's extremely raw. I got in my notes, raw, no moves, tries to win with athleticism. And why wouldn't he? He runs a 4.44. But that's not good enough at the next level to just win off of pure explosiveness. You're going to have to give tackles something to think about. And if he's able to start using his hands, which he doesn't really do right now, which is another con, is hand usage. It's non-existent right now. If he's able to start using his hands and start to put together a bevy of moves, he only needs, with that kind of speed off the edge, he only needs a couple of moves, a changeup and a curveball. That's it. The fastball is electric. Just give me something off speed and maybe something else to think about, and you got something. You know, hard outside, back inside, and a spin move, and you got what you need. So a little bit of hand usage, and I think this guy will be fine as a pass rusher, but he's really raw right now. And then finally, pass rush plan. I call it PRP. He doesn't have one, obviously. I just told you he's extremely raw. He's not setting up tackles. He's not trying to play chess. Right now, he's playing checkers. You know, everything on the board is as it seems. He's not looking 2 or 3 moves ahead. And as a pass rusher, that's what you got to do. You've got to be able to give up a couple of rushes, knowing that this guy's probably going to stop me because I've given him this rush 3 times. Because you know the next time I get in a crucial third down situation, I'm not coming with the speed that time. I've hit him with the speed to the outside the last 4 rushes. He's looking for speed to the outside. It's time for me to go speed outside, back inside. So you set things up. He's not doing that right now. So in the 7th round, this is when you take these types of players, guy with explosiveness, a guy with a rare combination of height, weight, speed at the edge rushing position. Packers could use a guy that's disruptive off the edge. Let's hope Kendall Donnison evolves into something in the 7th round, 248th overall selection. Edge rusher out of Southeast Missouri State, Kendall Donnison is. So that's the Packers draft, 11 players in all. Not the most appealing Packers draft I've ever seen nor broken down. I thought they did some really good things early on at the cornerback position, really solidifying their secondary for years to come. They may have the youngest. Now, I can't say it's the most talented because we got to see these guys perform. Right now, the Jacksonville Jaguars have the most talented secondary in all of football. They did lose their slot corner, Colvin, in the offseason, so we'll see how that affects them in the secondary. But if you're talking young and talented as a combination, without just seeing what the product is on the field, just looking at the age of the guys in their secondary, from Josh Jones, who you selected last year as a safety, Clinton Dix, still a young guy on the first contract, and then 3 first or second year corners that you just drafted over the last 2 years. You're talking about 4 of your 5 secondary members all selected in the last 2 drafts, all very talented. You got to feel good about the secondary. Oren Burks gives your linebacking core an infusion of much needed speed. Your receiver position not only gets speed, but gets a ton of size added to it. This is an intriguing draft, but there also is a punter in here and a long snapper. And so we'll see what happens. But nonetheless, the Packers hit for average in this draft. They did pick up a first-round pick in next year's draft, which you got to be excited about. But nonetheless, here's how I graded the Packers 2018 NFL Draft. So that's going to do it for the Packers and their 2018 NFL Draft wrap-up. Plenty more of these to come, so stay tuned. Make sure you like this video. Subscribe to the Louie Tee Network if you haven't already done so. If you want to see the final grades and overall scores for each and every single player broken down, check out the website LouieTeeNetwork.net for the scores for each and every single player selected by the Packers in this draft. Make sure that you sign up for the website. Make sure you check the website out as the content on it changes periodically. So make sure you continue to stay in tuned to the Louie Tee Network. Check out the podcast, Louie Tee Network podcast. A lot of good things going on right now. You need to stay in tuned and abreast of what's going on the Louie Tee Network. That being said, I'm your man Louie Tee, signing off. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.